The signature part of being human is that we will die. These people who walked the ground in Afghanistan, the greatest fear, as I witnessed it among others and in myself, was to walk the ground. People would say, you have so many steps in this country, and then you die. You have so many steps. Everyone has a certain number of steps. To find people who walked the steps, lost friends, went back to base, and then did it again and again and again is special, and it never leaves them. And for what they did, they attained a glory that can't be bought or traded for.
Have you ever seen a video of a troop, a soldier, a Marine, surprising his or her family after returning home? And it's like that moment where everybody kind of reunites and the dad gives like the big bear hug to the kids and, he's back home with the family, sometimes sneaking up behind them or, showing up at a school event. And it's always just such a gut-wrenching moment. It doesn't matter if you're like, if your family is in the military or not. I mean, you watch these and your heart just breaks because you understand the sacrifices, right? The sacrifices that are being made by both the family and by the military personnel that is had been on deployment for a year or half a year or 3 months, away from the family, away from all of that time together, and still finding their way back home. But does a soldier, does a troop, does a Marine, the reason I say that is because soldiers refer to the Army. Of course, Marines refer to the Marine Corps, Navy, or let's just say troops. But do our troops ever really come back home? Do they ever really completely come back home? There are so many sacrifices that our troops made in the war on terror. And right now, Christopher Wray is saying, hey, guess what? There's so much chatter outside of the United States now. Terrorists are chattering everywhere about targeting the United States, especially after the October 7th attack in Israel, that there is a real fear that there will be another attack in our country. Think about what happened after September 11th. It changed everyone's life. It changed my life. It changed my husband's life. I mean, he was immediately in 2001 in Afghanistan after those attacks and had been there ever since. And by 2011, he was wounded in Afghanistan, in the eastern provinces of Afghanistan, fighting the war on terror, and continued to work even after he was blinded for 10 years, until, of course, he decided to retire. And we all saw how that war ended. After 20 years, America's longest war, we watched as the Biden administration basically just turned everything over to the Taliban, gave it all back, allowed Afghanistan to become not only a safe haven for terror, but a well-funded safe haven for terror with some of the best equipment in the world, U.S. equipment. And we don't even know where some of that equipment has ended up. I think they're still trying to track it down. These are all important questions because often when a war ends, we forget about those that served in it. We forget about the sacrifices that their families have made. According right now to the VA, 6,392 veterans committed suicide in 2021. That's just unbelievable to me. It's terrifying. These are some of the best people in the world, people that are willing to give everything for their nation and for their families. And they have been broken by the horrors of war. And they come back, and many of them come back broken, and they don't know how, and they can't. You can't just fix yourself alone. You can't fix yourself by yourself. You can't lock yourself away in the darkness of your mind in those moments of horror. People need to be there for them, for you, if you're listening to this and you're a military official who's been through, or a military personnel who's been through a lot, who's suffered under the pain of war. There is help out there. But a lot of times it's almost impossible to find. And a lot of times, it's just regular people living their regular everyday lives. They don't even think about those sacrifices. Or they walk past a soldier and they don't say, "Thank you so much for your service." They just forget. It's not something that they think about. That's pretty sad. But it doesn't always have to be that way. It's up to each and every one of us to make a difference, right? To say, hey, wait a minute. We need to realize why we are so blessed to be here. And that has been the sacrifices of millions of Americans on a battlefield since our nation was founded. And in this day and age, we need to find a way. We need to find a way to do a much better job at letting our military know that we love them, that we appreciate them, and that their sacrifices mean something, because we cannot afford to have any more of these great people giving up their lives, shutting themselves into darkness, or committing suicide. It's just unacceptable. I have a very special guest on today's show. I'm joined by a veteran to discuss life after service and the mental health crisis that is gripping our nation. His name is John J. Waters. I can't wait to share his story with you, because he is the author of a new book, and it is a fiction book, but based on the very real life stories of fellow Marines and his experience in the war zone. And it is called River City 1. We're going to be talking about the book. We're going to be talking about so much more. But first, let me go to my pillow. My pillow. Thank you, Mike Lindell. You know how much I love you. You do a lot for this country. You do a lot for America. You are never afraid to speak up and speak out. And gift giving season is right now upon us. And what a better way to spread joy than with the gift of comfort and good sleep. This Christmas, this Hanukkah, My Pillows, Mike Lindell has set some of the lowest prices on many of your My Pillow favorites. Right now, you could get free shipping with code Carter. Listen to that again. Free shipping with code CARTER, which is extended through December 12th. If you order now, here's just some of the savings. 50% off My Pillow 2.0, 50% off a 6-piece towel sets, 50% off My Mattress Toppers 2.0, original My Slippers. Don't let Jack Posobiec walk around with those slippers. Carter's walking around with those slippers. You're going to be walking around with those slippers. And all you have to do to get that 50% off is use promo code Carter, CARTER. Regularly, listen to this, $139.98. Now only $49.98. Slip-on moccasin styles as well. Give a gift card. There's so many other items on the website when you go on and check it out. Bathrobes, blanket, mattresses, and so much more. So whether you're playing Santa for your loved ones or treating yourself, the time to save is now. Visit mypillow.com/CARTER and enter code CARTER Carter at checkout to get free shipping on your entire order. Go to mypillow.com/Carter. That's code Carter, CARTER, mypillow.com/Carter. I'm so grateful to have John Waters on the show. He's a veteran, a lawyer, and the author of a new book called River City 1. Thank you so much, John, for being on the show.
Thank you, Sara.
I am curious, River City 1, why did you come up with that title?
It's a phrase that anyone who served in the War on Terror will know, and will know not just intellectually, but also viscerally and physically. River City was a term I heard in Afghanistan on a first deployment in 2011 and 12, When River City is called over an encrypted communications, what it means is that an American's been killed, a soldier, or in our case, a Marine. All comms go silent in order for word to travel back through the chain of command back to the United States so that the knock on the door can be made to the family of the loved one who was lost. The second time I heard it was on Navy shipping in 2014, my second deployment. We were transiting through the Suez Canal, and the captain came over the public address system and said, "Now entering River City," almost as if River City were a place, a physical location you could enter. What it meant in that circumstance is that, again, radio silence would be enforced. Email went down, phones went down. It was a way of reducing your comm signature in case anyone was listening to you. The third time it came, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
The third time was the charm, I guess, when it came to writing this. When I moved back to my hometown in Omaha, Nebraska, I was going about my life, practicing law, raising my family, and I saw a notice, an advertisement for something called River City Roundup. A nickname of Omaha is River City. I'm sure there are river cities across this country, but my hometown calls itself River City. And suddenly I remembered the other places I'd heard it, and things started to swirl for me.
I think this is so interesting because when I saw your title, um, that's what occurred to me was that River City, and it hadn't hit me. I hadn't even thought about it since Afghanistan, since I was covering the war. But I remember when it would just go, everything would go on lockdown because they didn't want comms going out. So even as a journalist, when I was on a base or I was on a forward operating base or a combat outpost and a troop had been killed or a soldier had been killed or Marine, if anybody had been killed in action, KIA, of course, if I heard about it, the colonel, or whoever was in charge would come straight to me and say, "Hey, I know you heard. We can't get any information outside the wire right now. We're trying to reach the family." And there were many times where I would witness, either the bodies coming back or I was with the parajumpers and we'd be out there and we'd be bringing the bodies back. I would be on the helo with them. It is a very traumatizing moment. I mean, for anybody who experiences that, you don't realize it at the time. It kind of hits you later, right?
It's a feeling, and the war, the whole experience, the whole combat thing reduces in moments when you hear River City to a feeling. I felt it. Sounds like you felt it. Thousands of us who were over there felt it, and it wasn't something that happened to us. It was something that happened to someone else, so we heard about it, and it made our stomach turn. It made our breath catch. And that's a feeling that never goes away. And that's something I'm trying to transmit through fiction, through a story, is that feeling, approximating something from one time and one place for people here in this country who maybe didn't go to Afghanistan or Iraq, didn't serve. They can still access the feeling, I think, if it's written the right way, if the story's right. That was my objective in writing this book.
I think that is so important. That is what makes an author, in my opinion, a great author, is understanding that kind of emotion and be able to transmit that emotion and have people actually feel as though they are there. Explain a little bit your role in the Marine Corps. And my father was a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine.
Right.
You never retire, really. You're always a Marine. You were, what did they say? When they say former, Marines hate that.
Lee
Marines
Harvey
hate
Oswald.
that, right? Am I
Yeah,
right?
the only ex-Marine is Lee Harvey Oswald. That's right.
Yeah, right. The only ex-Marine is Lee Harvey Oswald. Thank God. And where were you and for how long did you deploy?
Those questions are the most important. Who were you with and when were you there? I got to Afghanistan in 2011 and I was serving for a general on a division staff. I was a ground intelligence officer and I was painting the picture of the enemy, trying to find IED caches, trying to find rat lines, trying to locate people. Over the course of a year that I was there in Helmand Province, everything became micro-focused on targeting, became focused on individual personalities, capturing them or killing them. After I left Afghanistan, I went to a battalion called 1st Battalion, 6th Marines in Camp Lejeune, and I became a platoon commander in Weapons Company 1-6 for a Scout Sniper platoon. Scout Sniper platoons are about to go away in the Marine Corps on December 15th. I was lucky to have had a year where I was in charge of outstanding infantry Marines. Thereafter, I became an intelligence officer for the battalion, and we deployed on the MEU for 9 months, and it culminated in going to the embassy complex in Baghdad in 2014. Of all those experiences, for me, the signature experience was being with Scout Snipers. And not for anything I did, but for what I saw and what I got to hear and what I got to learn by being with Marines who, in my opinion, had been very courageous in the war.
Talk a little bit about that. What was some of that like, and how did that like affect your maybe the writing of your book, the characters that you developed in your book, um, what that meant to you? Because I know my husband is a retired Delta, and they're a different breed. And there the scout snipers, recon, marine recon, all even marine intel. You guys are just a different breed. I don't know how to explain it. I tell people you have to know them and be with them for some time to truly understand how these men operate. So explain a little bit about that.
I witnessed something. I witnessed what I thought was courage, what I thought was sacrifice. In the Marine Corps and those other units, certainly, Sarah, you mentioned, there's something about giving unconditionally. It's not business, it's not civilian life, it's different, it's unconditional sacrifice, unconditional commitment. In a way, it's unconditional love for your country and the people you're with. And the people who show that the most are those who risk the most. Those are snipers, those are reconnaissance Marines, infantrymen, special operators, and the like. And when I was up close to it, it was palpable. I mean, it wasn't what I did. I was an officer. I don't know, 20% of the military are commissioned officers. That was me. I was leading, managing, directing, but I had a different type of admiration for people who had gone all the way. In 2005, I graduated high school. I could have enlisted, but I didn't. I went to college, and I came to the war late. These Marines were mostly my age. They had come from different places in the country, but they had signed up immediately. To me, that was special. It was beyond what I did. And so I couldn't help but have this feeling for them and for what they had done, an affection, an affinity, a respect, whatever it was. And in some way, I wanted to capture what I had witnessed. And I tried to do that in River City 1.
That's pretty incredible. And when you think about, and I want for all of you out there that are listening to John and I, just to imagine, like when you said it was palpable, you said that, these were the snipers, the men on the front lines. They were right there. I mean, it was kinetic for them. I remember when I went out to Creech Air Force Base in Nevada, and I was a young reporter then. I was working at the Washington Times, and I was covering the drone pilots, the people that were basically managing the drones from out here. So, the Reapers and all of that. And they would find their target, and they would target them. And it was almost as if it was, and I don't mean to be callous about this, but it was like a video game, because you're like sitting in an office or in a building. I signed off on a 99-year, promise never to tell anybody, taught, this is classified. If anything happens, I promise I won't talk about it, document. But you're so far away from the war in that respect. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't feel it, that the impact isn't there for those that are flying those drones. But when you're on the front lines, and when you're working on the front lines, and the enemy is face to face with you, and you have to look at them. And then not only that, the enemy could have a family, or could be a farmer, or could be, a 16-year-old kid or a 10-year-old kid walking with a bomb strapped to them because some Taliban, guy made them a human bomb. It becomes so much different. It is an absolute different mindset. You're vested in that. You're vested in the human entity, right, of war, and the very real potential that in those moments that you confront the enemy, that you or that enemy are going to perish this earth. That's it. That could be that quick. Do you think that fundamentally changes a person?
I think it, no question, fundamentally changes a person. I talked to a World War II veteran. He's 101 years old, John Lucky Luckadoo. He flew bombers in Europe. What a name. That's his name.
Lucky Luckadoo? That's
Lucky
like the
Luckadoo.
best name I have ever heard. That has got to be made up. Lucky
No,
Luckadoo. No?
his nickname is Lucky, last name Luckadoo, Luck Adoo.
Wow.
Incredible man, sharp as a tack. And he said that the special knowledge the combat veteran takes back from war is the experience of kill or be killed, and what that means. It doesn't go away. You don't unlearn it. You can't get rid of it. You cannot forget it. I think a lot about the Iliad in trying to make sense of my Marines, my own experience, war in general. There is something in the Iliad about the gods envying mortals, envying Hector and Achilles, envying Patroclus, because they have their lives to risk. Because they have something so significant to risk, they can attain glory. That sort of eludes the gods who cannot die. The signature part of being human is that we will die. These people who walked the ground in Afghanistan, the greatest fear, as I witnessed it among others and in myself, was to walk the ground. People would say, you have so many steps in this country, and then you die. You have so many steps. Everyone has a certain number of steps. To find people who walked the steps, lost friends, went back to base, and then did it again and again and again is special, and it never leaves them. And for what they did, they attained a glory that can't be bought or traded for.
That's absolutely true. I think about that. I like the fact that you brought up the Iliad, but also I would think about that when I would think about astronauts and space explorers and great explorers even in the past, that would get on ships and not even know if the earth was round or flat, and they would still get on it and just head out to sea even though they heard these stories about these monsters at sea that could swallow a ship whole, or and we would do it, and we still
Mm-hmm.
do it. And the fact that like Elon Musk is planning, to take his rocket ships to Mars, and that there are all these people that are volunteering that are like, I want to be the first person there, not even knowing what they will be confronting, that kind of great unknown. And you talk about it being human, and you're absolutely right. And the one thing that I think is so extraordinary about how you delve into this topic is that war really is even more complex. You're not only delving into the unknown that you could lose your life, but like you said, it takes someone with the ability to be self-sacrifice, to love so much so that they would be willing to give that up. And that is truly a rare person, a rare gift.
It
And
is a
not
rare
all of
gift.
them want to do it. I mean, you get in the middle of it, right? And you're kind of like, well, what the hell was I thinking? I mean,
I think that's
bombs
a
are
common.
going off and things are happening, but you still do it. Do you think that's what differentiates us from everything else on the planet? Like our
I think.
ability to do it no matter what?
I think, yeah. Sacrifice is the first thing that came to mind. It was a word I learned in Iraq. They have a word. It's called fidwa. Fidwa. It's used to express love between people or for things. But what it literally translates to, I think, is I will sacrifice myself for you. I express my love by sacrificing myself. To have witnessed it is to have witnessed something sort of at the peak of human emotion and compassion, in addition to violence. It's a strange thing to find in tandem. I think that absolutely makes us unique is our ability to sacrifice so much for some goal, to take so much risk. We only hope that the cause for which we take the risk is just and is something that everyone is committed to.
Hey, folks, we could all benefit from heart healthy energy. Super Beets Heart Chews are an easy and convenient way to support healthy blood pressure. They're plant based and stimulant free, so you get a green boost without the jitters. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the antioxidants in Super Beets are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. And they feel, not only do you feel great, but guess what? You can take them with you anywhere you go. They are so convenient. All you have to do is take your Super Beets and you are on your way. You can put them in your pocket, put them in your purse, travel with them, and they taste delicious. Did I say that already? Because they really, really do. And they make you feel better. And in fact, I'm going to be running out to my mail because I should be getting my Super Beats in today. Super Beats is also trusted by collegiate athletes and pro sports teams because it supports performance and endurance. And believe me, with my crazy hectic schedule, I need the endurance and I need the performance. Double your potential with Super Beats Hard Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beats Hard Chews and get a free full-sized bag of turmeric chews valued at $25 by going to americalovesbeats.com. That's BEETS.com. Get this exclusive offer only at americalovesbeets.com. Let me ask you this. You wrote a piece last month for The Messenger. It was titled, Can a Soldier Ever Go Home from War? And that was a question that was posed to you, and it really struck you. I mean, it was something that really got you thinking. Tell me a little bit about that and why. And I think this is so important because I see it in my husband. He was a wounded veteran. He was blinded in Afghanistan on the battlefield, and I don't think they ever really come home from war. I think like no matter what, I mean, he's an amazing human being. I couldn't ask for anyone better than him in my life, but that war is continuous. I just don't know. But what is your how do you see it?
Yeah, and I think we're all dependent on the compassion and the caring of our families, our wives or husbands or parents, to take us back and forgive us, to accommodate us when we don't mix in. The question came to me because I was actually talking to an artist, these things that don't belong together, you don't think, war and art. And this woman who is an artist had sung the song Danny Boy. And that song, whatever you think, wherever you come from, it seems it's so evocative. You can't avoid the emotion. It will stir in you. And it did it in me. And I didn't want it to, but I couldn't avoid it. And after she sang it, I was saying, what is that song? And she said, it's about a mother watching her son march off to war. This woman was Irish. And I said, I had been to war. And she said, do you think a soldier ever comes home from war? And I was at a time where I was feeling no. That was the clear answer, no. On the inside, I was someone shaped by the Marine Corps who saw with Marine Corps eyes and felt with a Marine Corps heart. And on the outside, I was a man wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase and trying to fit back into society, and it wasn't working. And so where do you go for an answer other than yourself, of course? Where could you go? I think you would go to the Odyssey. You would go to the greatest story of coming home from war. It took Odysseus 10 years. Literally 10 years to come home. And geographically, he makes it. He makes it back to Ithaca. But where people want the story to end with him reuniting with his wife, Penelope, his son, Telemachus, taking responsibility for his people again, it doesn't end there. He keeps his warlike ways. In the actual story, he keeps slaughtering the suitors who have been leeching off of his property and his family until Athena stops him. The story of Greek nostos, homecoming, I don't think there's an answer to it. Sarah, I agree with you. I don't think you ever completely come home.
Right, right. And this is like, and you said something earlier that is like I didn't want to forget. I blogged it in my brain because it is important. You said that it also depends on how everything ends, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
how you return home. And for a lot of the troops, and I hear this from, from Marines to Army, Special Ops, um, leaving Afghanistan the way we did was a really terrible moment for a lot of them. They knew that we had to leave. They didn't expect it to end the way it did. By the pullout so quickly, the turnover of Kabul to the Taliban, the weapons that were left behind. There were all kinds of issues there for so many of our troops. Um, that it felt unresolved to them. Like we came all the way out here, we fought America's longest war, and now we're heading back. But I always wonder, like, is there ever a way that it ends okay? You know what I mean? I
I hear
don't
you.
know. I don't know if I'm like, I mean, that definitely was not okay with me. Everybody can have their own opinion, but is there ever a way that it ends okay? Because as human beings, we do put so much on the line, but it's very difficult to shed that. And it becomes a part of who we are. It builds our self. It's part of who we are as a human being, everything we experience. So I mean, just like you said, is it the way it ends? I don't know.
That's a great point. Does any war ever end the right way or the best way? I think there's some theories that the Russo Japanese War was well planned, like we had an idea of how it should end before it ended. But personally, like emotionally, does it end in a certain way that's been better than others? I don't know that it can. I know that the war was 20 years. I know that many people came of age from 18 to a whole career in the war on terror. And the way it ended, maybe in at least visually or optically, in a manner of abandonment, feels like a part of their youth, their commitment, their energy was abandoned too. And that is something people have to reconcile or reckon with individually here at home.
How do you think, in your research on your book, how did you do any work on the rising rates of suicide among veterans? Or have we made any progress whatsoever in the military on handling what happens to our veterans when they transition back into the real world?
My research was informal. I think Scott Fitzgerald said the only research a writer needs to do is to ask his friends probing questions. And so I
Right.
felt like I was in the midst of a phenomenon of watching Marines who had been heroic, sturdy in combat come home and fall apart with their families, fall apart with themselves, disappear, not want to talk anymore. I don't know where they've gone, some of them. And so the research I saw was around me. It was more psychological, emotional. It was what I was observing and wondering why are guys, particularly the ones I knew, men, why are they fading away? Why are they falling apart? What is it about our society or the war or the confluence of both that's allowing people to slip away? And obviously that hurt me. I don't want people to slip away. These people are as real today as they were for me 10 years ago. I don't want to lose them. And so writing this became an obsession. It's a work of fiction. It's rooted in things I know. I wrote what I knew, but I extended it into my imagination of how something can go wrong for one person on the edge.
I think that's important. It's when I was covering the war, everything that I did first starts with the boots on the ground, right? The soldiers on the front line, the Marines on the front line, the Air Force or Navy veterans, the people who are the real confronters, I guess, of that evil, of that intangible human fight, right? The ones that confronting that evil straight on, and confronting themselves with what's inside their own hearts. I wanted to bring those stories back because I thought, just like that's what people need to hear. Let the analyst analyze everything up high. We need their voices. We need their voices. Did you feel like this book was a way of giving a voice back, even if it's a fiction book? Um, there is this nonfiction element of the voice of the spirit of those Marines that you were with that's like kind of spiritually lives through this book.
100%. And that's really well said. And I'm glad that was what touched you when you were out on the edge of things. Inch by inch, you find yourself in the situation where you are confronting it. How did I get here? Well, when you're there, you are fascinated by the people who manage it. You're fascinated by the people at the pointy end of the spear, the people walking patrols. And so it was those stories I wanted to capture for safekeeping, capture for legacy. Not the story of the named protagonist in single combat, Hector versus Achilles, the special operators, the Hollywood treatments that are given sometimes to those who are our most elite warfighters. But I wanted to capture the ground truth of those whose stories I think are being lost or forgotten, but who did courageous things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And in a way, they are those characters in the Odyssey, in the Iliad. and they tell us so much about ourselves. Do you ever yeah, I know I'm going to get deep here with just this idea, but like I think to myself sometimes, in our intellectual, like we've evolved knowledge base, right? We have more technology today. We have better medicine. We have our computers. God knows we're going to have robots and AI. That'll probably be a whole new paradigm in the human condition that we are not yet dealing with. But do you ever think like, I mean, we're all basically the same as our ancestors. Like those battles and those wars, other than the knifing, I'm not about the hatchets and the knifing. I don't even understand men half the time. I'm like, if it would have been a women's war, it would have been just so different. I'm telling you, we would not have gone for the knifing. Would have done something different. But but like, do you ever think like it's just we're the same? We are so much the same that if we met our ancestors on a battlefield, like we'd have the same feelings, we'd be the same people. We would be able to talk about it, but with just different technology, just different in a different place.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Obviously, we're on the same wavelength based on what you said about your reporting and what fascinated you. But I think the experience of the phenomenon of battle, the terror, the anxiety, the intense sacrifice, the feelings that well up and that you then have to kind of suppress. You have to stow them away because you have to carry on with the mission. You have to complete the task. And so you lose someone and you grieve, but you don't really grieve. You put it away. And then you come home and you see the parents and you see the empty boots and you have a ceremony and guys lose it. Guys who kept it together when they lost a friend overseas would come home and suddenly the emotion would wash over them and they would not only be emotional, but they'd be shocked because they thought they had dealt with it and they hadn't. I think there's invisible territory inside of us, just like our ancestors. It's called emotion. It's called, I don't know, more than that, but it's the same. It doesn't change. The manner changes. The technology changes, but the feeling does not. And we need to capture it and we need to share it because just because you didn't serve or didn't go to war doesn't mean you can't feel it, what it was like.
I think that's just brilliant. I am so excited for you and for your work and what you can be doing in the future. I do believe this is a therapeutic way of handling. I think it's going to make issues such as trauma, post traumatic stress disorder, from the battlefield. I got to tell you, I'm understanding of that. My husband is. I mean, we were there. Obviously, he served his entire life. He was one of those people, like you said, that served not only from the time he, joined when he was 17 and a half until, over 30 years later. Over 30 years, he just couldn't help himself. He had to just keep going back to war. He couldn't
Right.
help himself. And then,
Right.
eventually, you do come face to face with the very real possibility that you're either one, injured, or two, you could lose your life. I mean, he always told me, there's only so many times that you can keep going back and the odds start getting less and less that you're going to
Mhm.
come out of it okay. So that was his way of telling me, I want you to stop going back into the war zone, Sarah, because I went back in a number of times even after he was wounded.
Wow.
And then I slowed it down a bit, but I do believe this is therapy. Is there any advice after going through this book, after talking to all of the Marines that you spoke with, that you served with, that you would give to family members or others, when someone comes back from war? Like, what is the best thing that you think, I mean, based on your own experience as a Marine, but that a family member can do for someone or even
Patience
now?
and yeah, it's the big question. Patience and forgiveness. To write this book, my mother edited it. My wife commented on it. My sister helped me promote it. Uh, I went out on a limb to write this. It was revealing. It was vulnerable. I depended on the compassion of people who knew me the best to help me see this through. Without them, it wouldn't have happened. When they come home from war, they will look like one person, but inside they will be different, and they will be different than even you knew them, how you knew them when they left. And that disjuncture between how he or she looks and how he or she feels will take time to resolve.
Where can my listeners get the book? And where can we follow you on social media? Because I think this is just brilliant.
Thank you. It's Amazon, Bookshop, all the bookstores, Barnes & Noble, mostly online. And then John J. Waters 1 is my Twitter handle. If you're
John
looking for me.
J. Waters 1. John J. Waters 1. Everybody get out there, follow John J. Waters 1 on post, and please order this book. And for all of you out there who have anyone who's in the military or anyone who's been to war, please, it's important that go get the book, experience what they've been through, give you more of an understanding of who they are and what they've seen. And for those of you who don't, I say this is something that will take you into a world that you may be unfamiliar with, but one that is very familiar to the human condition, and a reason why we are so blessed to live in such a great nation because of people like you, John Waters, and my husband and others who are willing to put everything on the line, sacrifice everything in order to give their families and their community and their fellow citizens a better life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Again, thank you so much, John J. Waters, for coming on the show today. I really appreciate your perspective. I wish you the best of luck with your book. I think it's going to be a huge hit, a New York Times bestseller, I hope. And I hope for all of you out there that are listening that you really take to heart what I'm saying. I would love to hear your thoughts on, our military, what we could do better, what we need to do better. I think we obviously need a new commander in chief, first and foremost, in the White House. And once that commander in chief is replaced by a much better commander in chief, I think we need to focus on our veterans. Again, I think we need to do what is right by them. I think we need to work extra diligently hard on getting our Veterans Administration in order. And I think as a society, we really, really need to take a step back, slow down, and realize why we are so blessed to have what we have. And that is because of the men and women that serve in our military and are willing to sacrifice everything for our nation. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Sara Carter Show here on your favorite podcast app. It really helps. Also, give us that 5-star rating. Leave your review. I love reading your reviews. It means so much to me. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our U.S. military and every single one of our troops and every family member of those troops and all the sacrifices that you've made for our great nation. God bless our great nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.